Journeys Ahead, Draft 2, Chapter 14, 5 Years Back. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Void. Void. Rise and shine, my little one. A soft and soothing voice gently called to the young spark, getting him to open his eyes and awaken into a bright, warm, golden morning ray of light. At first, everything was blurry and fuzzy within his vision, until it all slowly came into view. One moment, there was nothing but watered-down images, and the next, a figure looming over him with a smile on her face. "Mom?" Void asked with morning breath as he slowly sat up in his bed and found his mother to be sitting on the corner. "Good morning, my love. You sleep well?" Void's mother, Celeste Astrostarter, asked as she reached her right plum, blue-colored hand forwards and caressed Void's cheek. A Void who was 10 years old 5 years back in the past. "I suppose," little Void replied as he rubbed his eyes and then took a good look around his room. It was like a fancy apartment. It had white reflective walls with dim blue glowing panel lines, as well as a TV atop a shelf stand with action figures within it. A drawer sat with tons of ready-to-be put-away clothes atop it, and there was even a nightstand by his side. There were tons of game and movie posters, as well as a big old window that overlooked the utopian city that was Sabaheim's main community location. There were massive, futuristic towers and skyscrapers that stretched up towards the glowing orange and yellow Aurora Borealis skies that looked to be a mix of sci-fi tech and an ancient medieval or Norse-type architecture. Home was the name of the city. Home of the Sparks. Come on, sleepyhead. Another training day is ahead of us. A true spark always starts off with a full stomach," Celeste exclaimed with her smile as she stood and scooped Void up and under his shoulders. Void, though, still looked half asleep, making Celeste do something to hopefully snap him to his full senses. "Oh no! It's a twister! You're gonna fly! Rah!" she fake yelled whilst beginning to spin her little boy around in a circle, getting him to both laugh and giggle from his mom's act. "Mom, I'm up," Void chuckled before being set down. "Not up enough. Let's see that smile. Get those Novasun muscles working." Celeste beckoned, getting Void to roll his eyes and bare his teeth, revealing a small tooth gap in between his two fronts. There's my little warrior. Come," Celeste happily exclaimed as she set Void down and let multiple cat-sized robots attach Little Spark's body armor upon him. It was the exact same type Void had worn in the present day, just excluding the shorts and hoodie piece, replaced by basic Spark armor and long white pants. "Thanks, guys," Void said with a nod to the little robots that looked like flying Roombas with stick arms and rabbit ears. "Come, Father has made breakfast," Celeste beckoned as she approached a self-opening sliding door, with Void now following close behind. Before he left the room, though, the Spark sneakily snagged his teddy bear from the bed and opened his right arm hatch. Inside were some crayons, a rubber duck toy, and a family photo of him, his mom, dad, and brother from a trip a few years back. It was without a frame and was merely a little curled paper piece that Void held dear. Quickly, the little Spark put the teddy bear inside and then followed his mother. Entering into a living room kitchen mixed environment, the little Spark took in a fresh whiff of what smelled to be pancakes that made the inner workings of his mouth melt and tingle. "Morning, bud," Void's father, Nova Galaxon, greeted from the kitchen workspace as he flipped a set of greenberry pancakes up and back down onto a pan. "Morning, Dad," Void greeted, watching as his mom yawned and sat at the kitchen countertop. Upon doing so, she reached forwards, snagged a steaming mug, and took a swig from morning coffee. You heading out with your mother to the train? Nova asked with a smile as he rounded the corner and handed a plate full of pancakes to his son. Yeah, I think we're going to learn more about Nova runes today. Right, Mom? Void asked with excitement, getting Celeste to smirk and nod. Nova runes? Ha! That may take a while, little buddy. Another voice suddenly called, with an added hand placement to the top of Void's head. Perking up, the little spark quickly turned around to his left-hand side, only to see a dark-skinned, sharp-horned, orange and purple-colored spark looking down upon him with a grin. As Void's blue eyes locked upon their orange shines, his smile grew even wider, for this was his older brother, Kor Novason, looking ready to head off to work. Oh, I'll figure them out. I'll show you. Void assured to what was one of his idols, getting Kor to snicker and then kneel. And I have no doubt you will, bud. Remember to remain focused in any situation. Keep a clear mind and you'll get it with ease. The older Novason brother replied as he watched Void stuff his face with the greenberry-colored pancakes. Just make sure not to kick Mom's butt too hard, you hear? Kor then asked as he raised his fist up for a bump. No promises. Void snarkily replied as he returned his brother's gesture. What about kicking butts? Yet another voice suddenly spoke from where Kor had entered, getting everyone to turn. Stumbling out of the older Novason's room, trying to put on a sneaker shoe, came a spark that was short, skinny, and had soft red horns in the shape of deer antlers. She had soft, peppermint velvet skin with a red candy cane mixed licorice color palette that was topped with similar colored eyes and freckles. This spark wasn't Void's sister, aunt, or cousin. Rather, it was a family friend, Kor's girlfriend, Sika, Rain's daughter. Ha, nothing, love. Just giving my little brother some advice. Kor replied as Sika slid on her shoe, but stumbled forwards in a fumbling way. Whoa! She exclaimed before falling right into Kor's arms. Oh! Phew! Thanks. She thanked before kissing Void's older brother on the cheek. Hi, Sika. Void greeted as he finished off his pancakes. As he did so, the reindeer-looking spark turned her head and gave the little one a finger wave. Hi, Void. Kicking butts today? She asked. Yup, the little one replied, getting Celeste to turn in her seat. Hey, don't underestimate your elders. I can still hold my own, little man. She boasted with a playful punch of the air. Elder? Mom, you're only 410 years old. You're still young. Kor said, getting Celeste to roll her eyes, turn, and groan in her seat. Don't remind me, sweetheart, she said whilst chugging the last of her coffee down. 410 and still looking amazing, Nova called, getting his wife to roll her eyes and blush with a smile. Ah, you. She gushed as the sound of a bus pulled into the Novason's front dooryard, one that was attached to an auto-changing subway rail that would zip around the city freely. Well, that's our transit. We still doing dinner tonight? Kor asked as both him and Sika made their way to the front door, making finger gun motions all the while. Yep. You two have a good day at school, Nova called over his shoulder while now cleaning the dishes. Thanks, Dad, but we're the teachers. I'd rather you pray, Kor called back as he exited the door with his girlfriend. Oh, come on, Grumbles. The kids aren't all bad. Sika tried to reason, getting Kor to roll his eyes. I know. Love you guys. See you later. He finished with one last look over his shoulder, giving an added wave. Love you too, honey, Celeste replied, watching as her eldest son boarded the transit and then went off into the vast and beautiful city. All right, Pumpkin, you ready? Celeste asked as she took Void's empty plate away and then picked him up, resting him over her shoulders. Yes, ma'am, he replied, while Nova began to leave as well. You two have a great day. I gotta head to the castle. It's a meeting with King Orion. Looking forward to dinner, though, Nova said as he kissed his wife goodbye. Ah, yes. Be safe, my love. I'll see you then. Celeste bid her farewell as they all stepped out and onto their balcony, which was several stories up and attached to a building that was in the shape of a tree. This was a structure that created a little community of homes, a small neighborhood high up in the sky, something both lovely yet incredible to see from afar. Yep, love yas, Nova called with a wave as he ran to the balcony ledge and summoned forth 2 golden angel-like wings made purely out of spark essence. With these, he soared down and then back up, flying to where he was needed. Ready to fly, son? Celeste asked as she too summoned a pair of spectral-looking angel wings that reflected her blue soul color. As always, Void replied as he flipped himself off his mom's shoulders and then clung onto her back. Good, 'cause here we go. Celeste boasted in a smirk as she deployed her battle helmet and leapt off the ledge of her home. Soaring downwards in a nosedive, Celeste quickly began to pick up speed while Void held on tightly with excitement in his heart. Hang on, she warned whilst flapping her wings in a snapping back motion, which sent them both soaring up and into a steady glide. Yeah! Void cheered aloud, throwing his right arm up into the air. From the tips of his metal fingers, he could almost grace the starry clouded sky above him, as he felt to be a giant over the constantly moving city below them. Leaning down, Celeste tucked in her wings close to her back and took another dive, this time going in between buildings and soaring around the moving transit buses that went around and about. Home was both a beauty and a spectacle, a spark's dream. All around, several others of their kind flew with their own wings, going between buildings and enjoying the day out. Below, pedestrians all walked about, going into work or coming back from a long day of training. Instead of police, Royal Spark Knights patrolled the streets. Posted cars, levitating flat and sleek crafts carried the cyborgs around automated magnetic streets. It was almost too perfect of a society, as someone put it. One thing was for certain, though. Savahheim Singular Dimension was a land of peace and honor. Hey, Mom, when will I get my wings? Void asked through the air as Celeste returned to a steady glide. Honey, I've already told you. Your wings won't manifest until you're a teenager. Void's mother re-explained with a glance over her shoulder. Even so, it'll take time to learn how to fly, along with conserving such an energy charge. Our magic can't be used constantly, remember? She added as her wings looked to ever so slightly evaporate in a slow pace. I know. I'm just really excited to fly one day. To be a real spark warrior like you and Dad. Void loudly boasted as he sat upright on his mom's back and put both of his hands on his hips. I have no doubt you will, my love, but only with proper training will you be able to meet your full potential. Soaring down once again, the pair of sparks began to enter a more nature-filled area of home, one where tall trees graced the sky alongside smaller, beautiful flower-like formations of plants, both big and small. Standing tall from in between these plants were massive golden statues, showing ancient figures from the Spark's mythological history. Whoa, Mom, look! It's the statues of the Sparkborns! Void exclaimed as he pointed towards the building-sized murals. There's Seraphim, Darfian, Rivara, Rhodos! He listed as they passed each one with 3 seconds between them. That's how large these structures were. Sabrath, Glyflora, Elbrus, Vetrix, and Matira! Void finished as they both passed the statues and landed upon a nature path, mixed with technology and organics. Whew. Well, someone knows their history. Look at you saying such big words. Celeste happily said to her boy as she dissolved her wings and set her son to the ground. Well, Cora's been teaching me some stuff. He's a real nerd, though. I don't know why he doesn't want to be a knight like you and Dad. Void asked with curiosity in his heart as he and his mom approached a glowing yellow fluorescent guardrail that overlooked half of the city. Past the nature-filled setting rested even more extravagant buildings, and even an ocean of crystal blue water that was truly breathtaking. Not every spark wishes to be a guardian, my love. Some of us would rather spend their days teaching and doing science like Core. If not, anything else their hearts desire. The Sparkette replied, as she knelt down and brushed some fallen leaves off her son from their landing. Everyone, no matter who they are, has the right to be who they want to be. That includes our own kind. Remember to never judge someone for not sharing the same interest or mindset as you. Celeste taught, whilst now rubbing the top of her boy's head. Yes, Mom. The little one replied, before being taken by his hand and marching down a sidewalk path. Although surrounded by trees and all kinds of plants, there were still tons of buildings and structures with many sparks out and about. This sector of home was referred to as the Great Greenery. It was a massive central garden park that was used to grow many plants from different realities. This created what Sparks saw as a reference to unity, one grand omniverse that at its core, all linked in a special way. Where are we going? Void asked as a bunch of little butterflies fluttered around him and his mother. We're taking a nice walk to the training grounds. It's a beautiful day, is it not? Celeste replied as she held her finger out and allowed for one of the butterflies to land upon it. I guess. Little Void replied as they walked over a transforming bridge that appeared to life with motion sensors. Looking down, Void stared through its transparent shell of a design and took a look into the water stream below. All kinds of fish swam on by, some small, some large, but in unity. As they crossed to the other side, several other kinds of sparks passed. There was a jogger, a mother with twins in a stroller, and even a cyclist. As he now thought about it, Void really did come to realize that this day was truly a beautiful one. What are we doing for dinner? Void continued the question as every kid did, as he and Celeste entered back into a more citywide environment, full of bustling streets, people, and shifting buildings that moved like Rubik's Cubes. We're going out to eat at that fancy restaurant we like, dear. It'll be me, your father, your brother, Zika, even Aunt Sigrun and Uncle Cosmos will be there. Celeste continued to answer as she held her son close by her side. Oh, could I get the special spaghetti, please? Void begged with a little hop as they passed by a spark driving a mail cart. Yes, sweetie, of course. For a long while more, the two marched through the pathways of their magnificent home. They passed by so many faces, so many wonderful sights that had been there for years. City fountains, sports tournaments, friendly gatherings. So much love, so much life, so many lives. Hey Mom, I heard that my friend got a girlfriend. Did you know that? Void once again spoke aloud in a question, getting Celeste to snort mid-stride. What? Who? She inquired with a dorky, familiar tooth-gap grin as her and Void marched their way up upon another bridge. This one was much bigger, as a curved road that had a waterway smoothly passing below it too. This system was a passage that connected to the distant ocean, going from one big body of water to entering a filter route to be used within the city itself. Jerry, Void responded as he craned his eyes back up to the many shifting skyscrapers that surrounded them. Jerry, seriously? Aren't you kids a little too young to be finding girlfriends? Celeste questioned down to her son as he turned from her and leaned against the bridge's rail. I never said I was dating anyone, but I am curious about something. Looking up, the little spark eyed down the city that almost looked to be alive. There were so many moving parts, with sparks flying through the air. It was all continuous activity that felt to overwhelm him just a tad, but in a good way. Whenever I do end up with someone, how will I know? The little one gently asked as he looked down to the water and gazed into his reflection. "No what? If you're in love?" Celeste inquired back with a raised eyebrow as she too looked down to the water. "Yeah," the Sparkette's little self answered as their reflections rippled up and down within the waves. "Well, love is a tricky thing, little one. You may not fully be able to grasp it when it comes your way, but there are signs to note." The older Spark began as she started to recall memories of her and Nova from years back, when they were both young and dumb. "The best thing I can say is that if you ever find yourself confused on if you love someone or not, then it's most definitely love." Placing a hand over Void's shoulder, Celeste was able to give him a comforting gesture by a simple rub to his side. Love was an awkward thing to discuss for kids Void's age, but this was probably the best way to explain it from her perspective. "If you find yourself loving this person more with each passing day, then you know it's that love growing stronger," she went on as the sun grazed their souls with a warm hug that felt to bounce off the words that left Celeste's mouth. "And if you can't imagine a future without that person, then it's love becoming part of you." Turning down, Celeste gently gazed upon her boy as he looked back with wondrous eyes to her words. "Void, listen. Girls will bring you many gifts and offer their hands for this love. But one day, you'll meet a girl that'll truly feel the same confusion I described to you," she assured whilst beginning to rub his little head. "And that girl will learn everything you love. Your favorite song, your favorite movie, your favorite dance, your favorite food, your favorite anything," she rambled before placing her hand atop Void's chest. "That girl earns your heart." In response, Void grinned and nodded to his mother. Raising his small hands, he rested them atop his mom's larger palm with a reassuring feeling swelling in his soul. "Okay," he replied. "Good. Now, let us..." Before Celeste could finish her words, a noise suddenly ruptured across the sky. Like thunder, a loud rumble shattered across the star-filled abyss above, getting every spark below to suddenly snap their heads upwards. An audible cease of silence came across the city for a moment, as all attention was set upon the golden skies above. Within it, they could all faintly see what looked like a thin, glowing line. A sharp crack of some sort that didn't exactly match with the surrounding stars. "What in Matir's name?" Celeste asked right as another thundering boom came across the heavens. From it, the crack in the air instantly grew larger, getting longer and more spindly, akin to a spider's web. That odd sense of confusion now began to grow into a sense of panic within the Sparks, as this was something that they had never seen before. "Whoa, Mom, what is that?" Void nervously asked as he was huddled closer to her side. I don't..." Before the Sparkette could finish again, the noise came aloud, coming from the crack that continuously got larger. Brighter and brighter it got, emanating its snow-white shine. The clouds in the sky then began to darken, while the winds started to arise, all as the crack got bigger and bigger, until at last came the break. In a gargantuan light, the sky literally shattered open with such force, it was almost akin to the power of an atomic bomb. Reality shards that once concealed the seams between worlds rained down like both hail and daggers that sent many Sparks on edge. Within an instant, static began to spill from the tear like a crooked arm or seeping venom, making the once gorgeous sky look like a broken TV screen. "Matira's grace!" one Spark shouted, nearly falling off his bike. What? What is that? What is that?" another cried, as powerful strands of red lightning began to shoot out in deadly strikes. Surrounding the newly opened crack of light, the clouds looked to form a reverse funnel. Like the early stages of a twister, these clouds went around and around. However, instead of dropping down from a cyclone, they instead went up, leading to a now open rift of red mist. "Mom?" Void nervously asked, as he was now scooped up into her arms. "By the gods, what is happening?" a spark asked, while Celeste began to step back and away from the rail. "What the?" she muttered, as the world above began to roar with the might of 1,000 lions. "Void, stay close. We're heading back to..." Suddenly, shooting out from the massive tear, erupted a giant strand of blood-red lightning that, to all the sparks' horror, began to strike down and shatter some of the tallest skyscrapers around home, one of which being right beside the two onlookers and those around them. "By Donathian's spear!" Celeste cried, as sparks from all around began to frantically panic and get out of the way. Celeste, though, knew that there would be no time to run. Hunkering down and recalling her night training, the spark had slammed her fist into the floor. From her punch impact, a massive Novaruan shield bloomed to life in a rose-garden shape, protecting them both as the entirety of the building collapsed down. From that moment, Void blacked out. Fear had taken hold of him from the sudden panic, and the little spark didn't know how long he had been out for. But when he inevitably came to, it was within his mother's running arms and not in a pretty sight. "What?" Void asked, as all around came the many embodiments of chaos. The sky had now fully turned to a dark reddish flame shade, with many cracks stretching across its form. Flames and dust filled the now darkened city, while screaming came from all angles. Ruptured and monstrous roars were heard. The distant sound of glass shattering came above in the sky, that bounced off the cries for help and pleads for Matira, Seraphim, anyone. Void, hey, you okay?" Celeste asked down to her son, but he couldn't speak. He was too shell-shocked to form words. The city was in ruins. How long had he been out? What was happening, and why were people screaming? "Hey, we're gonna meet up with Dad. When we do, we'll find Core and get to safety. Just don't look." Void's mother assured, but the young spark ignored her words and looked all around with terrified eyes. Void watched as many sparks either ran from danger or fought back against the most horrific creatures he had ever seen. There were hundreds to possibly thousands of glitches, polychromes, sourclaws, unstables, every single one of them. This was the first time Void had ever seen them. Some of these sparks, mainly knights, were triumphant in their fight, while others, those of regular civilian life, met terrible and gruesome fates that would scar Void for years to come. "Don't look! I said don't look!" His mother repeated as innocent sparks were torn apart limb from limb. The sounds of metal snapping and flesh tearing brought the young Void to immediate tears. It was horrible. Too much for his young mind to bear. What's going on?" The little spark whimpered as his mother leapt forwards and slid down a sloped ledge, staying clear of the onslaught. "I don't know, honey. I don't know. Just focus forward and don't look back, okay?" Celeste told her son with a shaken tone as they neared a massive chunk of fallen over debris. Kneeling down, the motherly spark set Void to the ground and pointed to a narrow passage through the fallen stone and rubble before them. "Okay, I know you just woke up, but this is where Father said to go. You go through this, okay? Some friends will be on the other side to help you out." Celeste explained while placing both of her hands on Void's cheeks. Wait, what? Mom, I don't understand. What's happening? What about you? You're not gonna fit in here." Void asked through a teary-eyed face as he continued to try and grasp everything that had been happening. "Hey, I'm gonna climb back up and help some survivors get to the other side as well," Celeste stated while wiping Void's tears away. "I'll be okay. I promise. I'm a knight, remember?" she reminded her son whilst kissing him on the head. After this, she summoned her battle helmet over his face, shifting it to fit her little one's size. Stunned, Void touched the protective guard and asked, Why'd you give me your helmet? Standing up, Celeste quickly pointed to the passageway and sharply replied with a cold sweat. As of now, it's yours. Now go! Hurry! She barked with slight tears in her eyes. For a moment, the young spark stood there, weeping and unable to move. He had been too scared, too confused to fully grasp what had changed. All around, he continued to hear the screams and chaos. So much chaos. Go, Void! His mother shouted, nudging the spark hard towards the open crevice. Snapping out of his panic and weakly nodding, the young spark turned and crouched down. Huddling underneath the rubble, Void began to make his way across on his elbows and knees, going as quick as his small body would allow. As he entered more of a darker area, his helmet visor activated the light with a blue night vision ray, a light path that helped him both maneuver and find his way through the damage. And yet, as he crawled forward, Void couldn't help but question aloud. What's going on? What's happening? I thought Salvaheim was supposed to be a safe haven. Void mumbled through sniffles and tears, now feeling the ground vibrate and shake from the raging battle outside. What are those things? Why our home? He weakly pouted as a distant orange light greeted him from the other side, along with a shadow. I see him! I see him! Come on, kid, this way! The shadow shouted, waving at the young spark with a voice Void knew all too well. Crawling faster, the little one felt the rubble above begin to shake and creak from blaster fire and oncoming monster assaults. His knees and elbows began to get scratched and dented as he continued on. Here, take my hand! The figure shouted as they reached inside the crevice. As fast as he could, Void reached back and took hold of the large mechanical hand that grasped for his. Once interlocked, the larger mitt quickly closed and yanked Void back out into the open. Wincing, the little spark was welcomed back into the burning world around himself. The sky cracked with static. Spark blaster bolts shot across the lands, while buildings and homes were destroyed by the most ungodly beasts he had ever seen. Turning away and up, Void looked upon the one who had pulled him free. He was tall and almost a threatening figure, but was more of a gentle giant than anything. He had dim blue skin with an oval-shaped head. His scalp had been donned with 4 sharp horns that sprouted upwards towards the sky, contrasting a set of beady lime-green eyes and armor color. Yet, the figure held both a worried yet relieved gaze within them. The most interesting thing of note about this spark was his lower half, a bulky shape that had 4 sharp legs that held him up high in pride. The spark's name was Atlas Scrapeson, Kor's best friend since childhood. Void! Oh, thank Matira you're okay! Atlas exclaimed as he knelt down and brushed the ash and debris off the spark, who he viewed as a little brother. Oh, thank goodness. Are you okay, sweetie? Are you hurt? Another spark voice came, this being Alice's girlfriend, Evelyn. Evelyn was a magnificent spark that was very tall but had an elegant mechanical tail. Her face was pretty with 6 small sharp horns on the sides of her head that looked akin to Hershey Kisses. Her mechanical body was slim and feminine shape, with sharp purple armor plating. Lavender blood looked to seep from the spark's wounds, but didn't stop her in helping Atlas tend to the young Void. Evelyn, Atlas, Void murmured as he took off his helmet and wiped some tears away. I know, it's okay. It's gonna be okay, Evelyn assured before scooping the little one up into her arms. Come on, let's find your parents. It shouldn't be too far up ahead, the large 4-legged spark mentioned, rubbing Void's head in an attempt to comfort him as well. Turning, the couple with Void and Evelyn's arms began to quickly make their way down a narrow road. Both fog and dust clouded their view, making things hard to see, but it was obvious that there was truly nowhere safe to go. All they could do was keep moving. All seemed smooth at first, until the inevitable happened. From out of the fog rolled in 2 Sour Claws, one a deep shade of blue and the other a dense red. Shouting a battle cry and reacting fast, Atlas activated his very own weapon, It was a double-bladed katana that sparked with strands of green electricity. This was his signature weapon of choice. "Evelyn, protect Void!" he demanded before engaging the two monsters. Turning, the sharp-tailed spark went for cover, but was instantly jumped by another type of glitch. A mimicker glitch, disguised as a turned-over vehicle on the side of the road. Thinking on her toes, Evelyn swayed Void away from the monster and used her tail to strike the beast. As her appendage shot forward, she activated a sharp blade upon its end tip and rammed it through the beast's face, killing it with a sharp snap. "Don't look, little one!" Evelyn cried as she flung the monster aside. Void, however, watched on in silent horror to the sight. Leaping up, Atlas drove his four pincer-like legs into the head of the red Sourclaw. Turning, he spun his lower half around, leaving the creature's skull to rip off like a spinning top. As the monster dissolved, Atlas, twirling his blade, lunged and struck a blow across the neck of the blue Sourclaw, taking them both out with swift ease. "Come on! Gotta keep moving!" he cried, with a land back to the ground and a wave of power. Maneuvering on their feet once more, the two ran side by side, while Void could only stare in disbelief at what had been happening. Where's my brother?" he weeped, while shoving his head into Evelyn's arms. "I'm not sure, kiddo, but knowing him, I'm sure he's alright," Alice reassured as both him and Evelyn slashed away at stable glitches that reached from the Void. "What's going on? Why is this happening?" Void asked again, while shaking and shivering. "If we had an answer, we would have told you by now, little one," Evelyn replied, holding the tiny spark closer to her chest as though he were her own son. "Vimatira, I've never seen so much chaos," Alice murmured as the three of them turned down an alley, breathing heavily and coughing out dust and smoke. "We were always warned of possible danger from the elders, but never like this," Evelyn said, as they crossed the threshold, entering into another open cascade of dust and rubble. When from it, the ground suddenly split open into a deep pit of burning red static. "Evelyn, move!" Alice shouted as he quickly leapt back, while other sparks who had been running alongside them fell in and far down a deep chasm of distant static. Gasping in fright, Evelyn suddenly tripped and fell down from a crack in the breaking road, resulting in Void being let go and tumbling down the incline to this pit. "Void!" They both shouted in horror as other sparks continued to fall in and scream to their deaths. Some sparks were able to fly out. However, most didn't, for they had used up a lot of energy to simply flee the chaos, leaving many unlucky. Scrambling and clawing to get out, Void within mere seconds suddenly fumbled and went over the ledge, but was caught by the leg from Evelyn's tail. Now upside down, Void stared into the deep, fiery, long fall, to what looked like hell below. His vision fell to elongate as he watched many sparks fall past him. Screaming and reaching for him, Void couldn't shake his young and curious mind away as they were burnt to static at landfall. So many cries and screams for help echoed from this pit, which with everything combined, turned Void's once oblivious nature to the heights into an eternal and fearful scar that would never fade. "I have you, honey!" Evelyn shouted as she yanked Void away from the fall and back into her arms. "Matira's Grace, are you okay, kid?" Alice asked as he looked in the Void's eyes that were shrunken and shaking from what he had seen. Void couldn't speak. He was internally petrified. The scene of him not being saved played over and over in his head. The thought of falling to his demise was now like a hard punch to his gut that came again and again. He was in shock, unable to speak for the time. Looking at one another, the two nodded and began to round the pit, heading further into the city. Yet like before, it wasn't long until more glitches found them. Diving behind a turned-over truck, Evelyn held Void close while Atlas leapt forwards and landed upon his two front hands. His four spider-shaped mechanical legs then rose up, bent forwards, and pointed towards the unstable beast before them. With a sharp turn, they all began to spin in a clockwise formation, until firing out rounds of green glowing bullets. The lower half of Atlas's body practically became a movable turret that sent round after round into the glitch, which was unstable. Wincing with fear, Void covered the sides of his head, to try and block out the sound of heavy artillery. Evelyn then tried to help out by placing her hands over his, whilst looking at her love with fear. "Come on, you freak, come on!" Alice shouted as an unstable glitch emerged from the smoke and shielded itself from the blows. With a howl, it raised one of its arms back and slammed Atlas aside, sending the green spark rolling and crashing with a yelp. "Atlas!" Evelyn cried, in turn getting the beast's attention. "Evelyn, run!" The four-legged spark shouted as he tried to get back up. As Evelyn stood to do just that, another set of sparks leapt in from the dust to everyone's surprise and rescue. A flash of red and blue emerged, striking the unstable glitch within their own set of weapons. The blue armored spark slashed away at its legs with two katanas, while the one in red struck it through the head with a sharp golden spear. It was Nova and Celeste. They had made it. As the glitch crashed and faded, the two parents quickly approached the small group with worry in their eyes. "Hey, you kids alright?" Nova shouted as both Atlas and Evelyn approached the married pair in weak steps. "Mom, Dad..." Void finally spoke in a cry as he leapt from Evelyn's arms and ran straight into his parents. With a sigh of their son, the family quickly and tightly embraced each other, nearly all in tears from the reunion. "Thank Materia you're okay. All of you," Nova stated as he looked to Void and then to the family friends. "Mr. Galaxon, glad to see you in one piece," Alice said with relief as Celeste went over, hugging both him and Evelyn. "As to you, have you seen our other son? We can't reach him," Nova questioned as Void quickly got upon his back. "No, but him and Sika are probably still at the school." "Oh God, the children," Evelyn added as a loud crack exploded from the sky, dropping in several glitches into the world from afar. "Don't worry, King Orion will surely send out distress calls to other worlds. It'll be okay," Alice assured as he watched winged glitches soar through the sky. "King Orion is dead. They got him," Nova suddenly blurted, getting everyone to turn in shock. "What?" Celeste asked in disbelief, but before Nova could explain, another spark entered through the fog. He was tall and lanky with curly-looking horns. His colors were that of dark greens and yellows, but he was a kind soul, a messenger named Shatter. "More enemies are landing," he shouted as he held onto a sharp blade. "What are we going to do?" another spark said, coming in from the left. Looking down in deep thought, Nova contemplated several outcomes before deciding on the only rational thing they could do. "We gotta get off-world," he said, looking at the survivor sparks around himself. "There should be working Star Rift stations around here, but we gotta work fast if we wish to survive." Nodding, all the sparks looked to one another before deciding. "Me and Evelyn will look for Core and Sika. When we find them, and when we do, we'll be sure to regroup with you all," Alice explained as he held on to Evelyn's hand. "I'll search for others. You two and the child get to safety," Shatter added before turning and running to the dust-ridden fog. "As will I," the other spark called before following Shatter's tracks. "Very well. You two be safe," Nova added while looking to both Evelyn and Atlas. "We will. Now get to safety," Alice finished as both him and Evelyn returned to the fog. Looking at one another and then down to their son, both Nova and Celeste nodded and began making their way to the nearest rift station. Running with tired breaths, the family of Sparks quickly ascended a steep hill, all the way up till reaching a line of rift stations. They all had been designed in arched shapes, having the outline form of stars as the base. However, it appeared that only one looked to be functional, for the rest were offline. "Oh no," Nova mumbled with defeat as he and Celeste ran up to the control deck, seeing that a one-person charge was the only option available. "No, no, no!" Nova boasted, slamming his hands on the control panel. "No," Celeste weakly mumbled out as well, as she gazed upon the device over her husband's shoulder. Looking at one another, the both of them quickly realized what had to be done. Slowly looking at their son, Void stared back, instantly knowing that something was wrong. Why are you guys looking at me like that? He asked. Gently, Nova took Void off his back and placed him down in front of both himself and his wife. The old spark then rose his right hand forwards and placed it upon Void's shoulder, all the while staring into his soul. Son, look into our eyes, his father said as their tears blew in the fiery wind. It was then from behind the little spark, a portal activated the life. Glints of blue and green danced behind Void, while illuminating his parents in a hopeful light of color. Listen, my love. This is a one-way portal. It'll take you to a reality far from here. A place where you will be safe. Celeste revealed as tears began to stream down her face in a river of sorrow. Upon hearing this, Void shook his head and embraced his mom tightly, beginning to crack and sob with uncontrollable fear and uncertainty. Hugging back, Celeste gripped her son tightly, while Nova gently laid his large hand atop Void's shoulder once more. No, Mom, Dad, I can fight. I can help. The little spark retorted, refusing to leave his family behind. No, you're not ready. Nova interrupted with an audible shake in his voice that broke Void further. Son, when you were born, me and your father made a vow that protecting you would be our one mission in life. Celeste added, setting Void back down upon the ground. We are standing by that oath, Nova finished as they gazed upon their kin. I'm scared, Void muttered as he looked down in a dreadful sorrow. We know, Celeste replied as she wiped his quivering tears away. Listen, beyond this portal, there will most certainly be others that can help you, Nova mentioned, brushing the side of Void's cheek. You won't be alone. Lifting up Void's head, Celeste looked into her baby's eyes and gave a tender smile, one that said everything was going to be alright. And even if, just remember this, we'll always be with you, in here. Raising a finger up, she gently tapped the plate of metal where Void's heart had been. If we aren't there, listen and follow your heart, son. Follow your heart. Standing up and taking a few steps back, the two sparks looked at their boy as he slowly realized and accepted what he had to do. Void wanted to say something, anything, a decline and I love you, but he couldn't find his words, for something began to approach. Whirling around, both Nova and Celeste activated their own Nova Blades as a tall, lanky, cube-headed being began to approach from the fog, sounding the hum and drag a sharp weapon across the ground. He muttered, making the adults stand their ground. Go, Void! Celeste shouted as she turned and shoved her son through the rift. The last sight of his parents that the spark would ever see was their faces of worry and fear. And yet, even so, they looked upon him with hope, a hope for not just himself, but for the future of their race. Void then saw white, heard a soft ringing, and then woke up. Void! Void! Jida shouted in a whisper as she was now sat on top of her friend and gently shaking him. Snapping open his eyes, Void frantically looked around the room. His horns, birthmarks, and panel lines had all been glowing a bright shade of sapphire blue, as his body was reacting to the nightmare, or rather, awful memory that plagued his mind for the last 5 years. Because of this stir, Jida attempted to wake up her friend once more, but this time, it was about to backfire. Void gruffed from a PTSD attack, which resulted in the feeling of Jida's hands on his body to be a threat. His brain was giving mixed signals. Nothing was right. All Void felt was the need to survive, the urge to fight, to live. With a flurry of motion, Void lunged forwards and tackled Jida off the bed. As they hit the floor, the spark snarled and glared a now panicked Jida down with tiny and burning blue eyes. Blue! Blue! She tried to reason, but suddenly fell quiet and tight-lipped as Void reared his arm back and activated his Nova Blade. Within an instant, the weapon's burning blue tip just nearly poked Jida's apple core, leaving them both in a tense moment of silence. Her body and room was instantly illuminated into a hot blue warmth that overtook her orange flares. With shocked eyes, Jida held her tongue before attempting to reach the spark again. This time, more gently and quietly. It was clear he was in distress or locked in some kind of memory fog. This act was something she recognized from her own trauma, how she used to lash out. He was scared, given by the tears that were spilling from his beautiful eyes. Void, it's me. You're okay. Jida quietly remarked as she slowly started pushing the spark's arm and blade aside. It's me. It's me. She repeated before illuminating her hair into a brighter and comforting orange hue that drowned out the dour blue from within the room. With tender hands, she raised both of them up and held the spark's cheeks, proceeding to wipe his tears in the most comforting way she could muster. You're okay. You're okay. I'm here. Jida continued to say, while she herself began to get emotional. As tensions fell and reality began to settle in, Void blinked once, then twice, before snapping to his senses and realized what he was doing. Jida? He now asked as the blind rage and memory faded from his mind. His burning blue flare also began to dissipate as the gravity of it all came crashing in. With a shocked gasp, the spark retracted his blade and instantly stood up and backed away from Jida. Then he raised his arms to show that he wasn't going to harm her. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Void apologized as his mechanical body shook with tears dripping from his spherical head, creating an audible tapping sound upon the wooden floor of Jida's room. From outside her window, the sound of heavy rain tapped at the glass that was joined in with thunder and lightning, reminding Void once again of the fall of his world. Hey, it's okay. I know you wouldn't hurt me. You're having a nightmare. It's okay. Jida reassured as she now stood up and approached the spark again. Looking upon her, Void could see that she was wearing her clothes from earlier. She hadn't changed and merely fell asleep in them, but her hair looked to be a mess from the tossing and turning she had done in her sleep. Nearing close, Jida reached out again and held on the Void's mechanical palms, allowing for her cosmic energy to both warm and comfort him to the best of her abilities. What happened? You can talk to me. Hanging his head low, Void closed his eyes shut and shook his head from side to side, recalling the horrors of what he had come to call the Purge. The echoed cries of his people struck and ate at him with an ever-present chill inside, making the spark wish he could just forget it all. A nightmare. An ever-present nightmare. Void sadly replied before looking back up to Jida with his tired eyes. A nightmare that reminds me why I'm doing all this to begin with. Void explained as he now held Jida's hands back and maneuvered close to her. It's something that won't leave me. Not until I mend and heal this wound that has both scarred me and so many others. Void continued as he now looked up to Jida with soft blue glowing eyes. As the two of them held hands, they found that their faces were nearly close to touching once more. A mixture of blue and reddish oranges casted that purple mix of light into the room, making everything feel almost tender and more eased in a sense. Jida, You and your family have helped me so much these past few days. Without you, we wouldn't be standing here now with a possible end in sight. As the spark's words met her ears, the guitarist's heart began to beat hard against her chest, giving her the feeling of butterflies to course inside. I can't describe just how much I've grown to care about you within that time. How much you've just begun to mean to me. In here. Raising his hand up, Void placed it to where his heart was, causing Jaya to blush in her place. You've shown me light after years of darkness in a way no one else has. And I deeply and truly mean every word from my mouth. And that's why with shaking lips of both curiosity and love, Jada asked a quick, "You what?" Blinking, Void stared deep into Jada's soul, causing her face to flush with a gentle orange glow that the spark couldn't see in the light. Leaning in, Jada felt the surge of courage to try and make her move again. She wasn't sure if the time had been appropriate, but it seemed that Void was going to tell her something that she had been feeling for a good while. Perhaps he was ready to admit it as well. "Void, just say it," Jada asked as she gently rested her forehead upon his. Taking a breath, Void narrowed his gaze down before finishing what he was struggling to say. "That's why I can't allow you or any of the others to come with me to Savaheim." Blinking in a stunned gaze, Jada threw her head back and looked at the spark with both sudden confusion and a hard sense of whiplash. "Wait, what?" She appropriately questioned in a baffled voice, making Void feel hurt on the inside. Shaking his head, the spark let go of Jada's hands and turned to the city view window by his side, proceeding to watch as the heavy rainfall continued to hammer and batter the earth in a magnificent spectacle. That night, I lost everyone and everything I ever knew and loved. Void reminded, looking back to Jada, who gazed upon him with conflicted eyes. All my friends, family, and loved ones were all taken from me. Killed, ravaged, thrown aside like they were nothing. The spark ranted on as his tears began to fall again. I never thought I would feel that sense again. A sense of compassion and care for someone else. I never thought I'd find a happiness that wasn't fake. I thought I would never feel like myself again. Void finished rambling as he reapproached Jada, who was now starting to swell of tears. Raising his hands, Void gently held her head by her cheeks and shook his, seeing that she was now filled with conflicted ideas and thoughts too. I can't risk losing you, nor allow for the Omniverse to lose such a soul. Void reasoned, now wiping away Jada's orange glinting tears with his thumbs. Void, I can help you. You know I can. I can fight. I can be useful. Jada retorted, saying that same useful line again, while also wiping away Void's tears. I know you can, and you are useful. You're amazing. But I can't risk the outcome of you meeting fate in what it has to be a war zone. Void replied, shaking with chills spilling down his spine. Unlike me, you have a home. You have friends that love you. I got nothing. Nothing. Turning, Void, with hesitancy, put on his backpack and activated his portal opener. With it on, he shakily typed in the code for Savaheim and shot open a portal to the place where he had never intended to return to. What? No, Void, you can't be serious. I promise to help you through this till the end. I'm sticking by that whether you like it or not. Jada retorted whilst trying not to yell, while even throwing her arms to the side. And you also promised to follow my every command and ask. So I am asking you to stay here where it is safe. Void pleaded as he turned to her with his own sense of confliction. So that's it? After all we've done together, after all we've accomplished as a team, you're just gonna go in there without my help? Jada snapped back, crossing her arms with an almost broken look to her eyes. I'm sorry. I know you want the help, and you have. But this is a fight that I must take on my own. Void explained as he picked up Jada's guitar from the floor and held it out to her. This world is a better place with you in it, Jada. It made my world better. To risk losing you would only break my soul further. Please, just stay here. Please. Slowly maneuvering forwards, Jada looked down upon Void and understood where he was coming from. But she also knew she could help. But the look in his eyes, she could see layers of trauma that went down for miles. She couldn't deny the fact that she had feelings for Void, but the look he gave showed that he wasn't going to let this one slide. Without saying a word, Jada took her guitar and hooked it upon her back. She then gazed back down and nodded to Void, silently agreeing, although reluctantly. Then, without warning, the spark embraced the guitarist in a tight hold. From this act, her face flushed to life as Void held her close to his soul, showing that he truly did care about her. In that moment, it didn't matter how Jada felt about his decision, for at the end of the day, this was someone who had lost so much, yet held too much in. Someone who had to figure it out on his own. All she could do was embrace his hold with a returning grasp. For a very long time, they both rocked in each other's arms, knowing, or rather hoping, that this would be more of a see you later, as opposed to a goodbye. Pulling back from one another, Void gazed into Jada's orange eyes and mustered a weak smile. I will come back. And when I do, save me a seat for tonight's get-together. The spark asked, reminding Jada that it was now Sunday, or more accurately, 6 in the morning, according to the clock. Of course, she replied with a smile. You better come back. Reaching his hand down, Void took Jada's right, raised it up, and to her flustered shock, gave it a little kiss. I promise. He saw with a stern stare before backing up and turning to face the portal. For those we lost, Void then boasted whilst activating his mother's helmet. And for those we honor. He finished the old saying while clenching his fists and walking through the portal. As Void disappeared through its upside-down triangle shape, Jada looked to the hand he had kissed and held it close to her chest.